वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Gaura Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Shri Harinam Sankirtanam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikhi. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome all devotees to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Canto 11, Chapter 7, verse number 41, chapter entitled Lord Krishna Instructs Uddhava. This is text 41. Please repeat after me. Parthiveshviha deheshu pravishtastat gunashaya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhir vayur ivatmadrik. Parthiveshviha deheshu pravishtastat gunashaya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhir vayur ivatmadrik. Parthiveshviha deheshu pravishtastat gunashraya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhir vayur ivatmadrik. Please recite. Parthveshviha deheshu pravishtastat gunashraya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhir vayur ivatmadrik. Parthiveshviha deheshu pravishtastat-gunashraya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhervayur ivatmadrik. Parthiveshviha deheshu pravishtastat-gunashraya gunairna yujyate yogi gandhervayur ivatmadrik. Word-to-word meaning and translation by disciples of His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, his disciples ki. Word-to-word meaning: Parthiveshvu, composed of earth and other elements. Iha, in this world. Deheshu, within bodies. Pravishta, having entered. Tat, of them. Guna, the characteristic qualities. Ashraya, having assumed. Gunai, with those qualities. Na yujyate, does not entangle himself. Yogi, a yogi. Gandher, with different orders. Vayu, the air. Iva, just as. Atmadrik, he who can see himself properly, as separate from this matter. Translation: although a self-realized soul may live in various material bodies, while in this world experiencing their various qualities and functions, he is never entangled, just as the wind which carries various aromas does not actually mix with them. Purport: although we experience the wind as fragrant or foul, depending on the aromas it carries, the wind does not in fact change its actual nature. Similarly, although we regard a particular person as strong or weak, intelligent or retarded, beautiful or homely, good or bad, the pure spirit soul, who is the actual person, does not really possess any of the qualities of the body, but is merely covered by them, just as the wind is covered by different aromas. Thus, a Krishna conscious person is always aware that he is different from the temporary body. He experiences the various transformations of the body, such as childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. But although he experiences the pains, pleasures, qualities, and functions of that body, a Krishna conscious person never thinks that he is the body. He always understands that he is an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Lord Krishna. As stated in this verse, na yujyate yogi, he is not entangled. The conclusion is that one should never consider a Krishna conscious person in terms of bodily designation, but should see him as an eternal servitor of the Lord. Now let us chant prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamsha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavade Paschatyate Sarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Shute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balbhadra Subhadravhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I desperately seek blessings of all devotees, especially His Grace Prem Swarup Prabhu, His Grace Sri Ram Raghav Prabhu, so that I can speak something worthwhile for the purification of my heart, glorification of Lord, and pleasure of all devotees. Please bless me. So, this is a very nice verse coming in the 11th canto, 7th chapter, where the Avadhut Brahman is actually giving us the lessons from the wind. So yesterday Mukund Kirtan Prabhu so nicely described about how the wind actually doesn't get entangled when it comes in contact with different kinds of objects. And today the continuation of the qualities of the wind, wherein the wind actually goes through different places and carries that aromas but does not actually mix with them. So in the same way, the realized soul also lives in various mental bodies. Now, how come a realized soul can have different bodies? When he's realized, he's supposed to go back to Godhead, right? So how can he have different bodies? But in the purport it says that he experiences the various transformation of the body, such as childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. So basically, this multiple various mental bodies is within the same body, the changes which are taking place. That is what this is referring to. So at every stage, the body has certain functions and certain objects with which it derives pleasure with. And like in the childhood, the child takes pleasure playing with the dolls and some teddy bears. No, but that object is not very entertaining when he grows little older. Then he needs a tricycle, and then he wants some video games. And then he grows little more older. Then he would want to play football, cricket with his friends, go out, and he needs a bicycle. And as he grows little more older, then then he wants a fiancée. So the object of pleasure keeps on changing. However, a self-realized soul is not affected by these changes. So today we will briefly discuss about, so this verse is speaking about bodily consciousness. How a self-realized soul or a devotee of Krishna is above bodily consciousness, and as a result of this, he actually not just himself doesn't identify with things and the relationships that are connected to the body, but also sees other devotees or another Krishna conscious person free from any bodily designation. So we'll try to briefly touch upon these two aspects with whatever limited understanding we have. So this bodily consciousness is actually very, very deep rooted. So much so that actually if you look at any lecture of Srila Prabhupada never misses to hammer this point. We are not this body, we are spirit soul. No, sometimes I think some disciples ask Srila Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, why do you repeat the same thing again and again, over and over? And you know what Prabhupada replied? Yeah, despite repeating so many times, you don't understand. So I have to repeat so that you get the point. Actually, if you see the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, he makes sure that you actually carry the point, you know. Like any lecture, Prabhupada, he has some specific message to be driven, and he keeps on hammering, and he ensures that he actually takes that point home. So Srila Prabhupada, even when questioned about the lofty pastimes of the gopis of Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada would actually always bring the audience to the point of, we are not this body, we are spirit soul. Because unless one rises above this bodily designation, he doesn't have the ability to actually perceive the spiritual nature of the objects and personalities. So in our life also, to the degree this bodily consciousness is prevailing, to that degree our perception of the spiritual, our ability to perceive the spiritual nature of the spiritual items around us and the spiritual people also is limited. So that is why this bodily designation is a very, very great obstruction for one's progress in spiritual life. So as a compassionate acharya, whose only desire to is actually to take the conditioned souls, navigate this path of material world and go back to Godhead, actually sees to it that we overcome this primary obstacle of bodily consciousness. So now this living entity by nature is such Chit Ananda. How is it that it has got such deep-rooted bodily consciousness? You know, in the spiritual world, the devotees actually their only pleasure is in serving and pleasing Krishna. But then in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see in the secondary creation of Lord Brahma, how Lord Brahma, when he's making different stages of creation, at one stage he actually creates these 5 layers of ignorance. You know, exactly like suppose somebody has to go deep into the ocean. You know, can he directly dive into it? No, he needs a swimsuit, right? Because the water is a foreign atmosphere for the human being. In the same way, for the Jivatma, the natural atmosphere is the spiritual world, where loving and serving Krishna, Jivera Swarupa Hai Krishna Nityadas, is the only air which it breathes. But in the material world, it is actually a foreign atmosphere. So the Jivatma cannot survive at the first place, where it has to work on satisfying his own mind and senses. So that is why this swimsuit is required. So the swimsuit is actually the subtle body and these 5 layers of ignorance. So we'll try to look at what are these 5 layers. All of you know, but because this is relevant to this discussion, so we'll try to just repeat it. The first layer is the tamas. So tamas means, at first place, one is made to forget that he is an eternal servant of Krishna. So unless he forgets that, there is no further progress in his endeavor to try to enjoy separately. So the living entity is fully made forgetful of his real identity. Now, then the next stage is moha. So moha means thinking, I am this body, and considering the designations related to this body as mine. So this is called as moha. So this is where the bodily consciousness is being inserted in over the consciousness of the living entity. So as soon as the Jivatma thinks that I am this body, so his whole focus is on how to derive the maximum pleasure from this body, because the identity is now changed. The object of pleasure is now changed. So the bodily consciousness starts from this point. And then the next stage comes Mahamoha. So Mahamoha means to consider everything in this world is meant for my own enjoyment. So a couple of days back, His Grace Ananda Bhagavan Prabhu was saying that the primary reason of one's suffering is when one indulges in matter. And the only way to come out of this is to dovetail the matter in the Lord's service. So actually, this is why one wants to indulge in matter, because of this Mahamoha layer, where one actually is made to think that everything around me is actually meant for my enjoyment. And then the next layer comes, that is Tamishra. So Tamishra means, so when one tries to enjoy, we know the cycle. Dhyato vishayam pumsa sangaste upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamat. Kamat krodhopi jayate. Krodat bhavati sammohat. Sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti bhramshad buddhinashat pranashyati. So when one tries to enjoy, so if he is unable to do it, then he becomes angry. And if he is able to fulfill, then he becomes greedy. Now, as soon as anger comes, then his intelligence is covered over. So this Tamishra is actually the anger that is arising out of frustration of not being able to fully lord it over the material nature. So this is Tamishra. Now the story doesn't end here. There is then Andha Tamishra. Now he is getting the frustration, but he is also made to forget the frustration which he gets. Otherwise, he will stop at that point, no? You know. So this is called as Andha Tamishra. So we hear the three kinds of disciples. You know, the first kind of disciple, he hears, he understands just by hearing. You know, second class disciple, he hears and he sees. So he hears and sees and he understands. Now I should not do this wrong activity. But the third class disciple hears, sees, experiences, but still he repeats the same mistake over and over again, because this Andha Tamishra layer, it actually impels him to act like this. So he endeavors again and again to try to exploit the resources of the material nature, but still he doesn't give it up. We also hear, when the living entity comes to this material world, the two potencies of material nature, they actually cover the living entity. The Avarnatmika Shakti and then Prakshepatmika Shakti. So Avarnatmika Shakti means, suppose a thief is caught. So first put the thief into a sack, that woolen sack which comes now in earlier days. So first put him in that. So he's completely blinded now. What is going on? And then Prakshepatmika Shakti means so hit him left and right. So he's getting the pain, but he's not able to understand from where the pain is coming. And he also forgets, because Avarnatmika Shakti is also there. So like this, the living entity becomes a secure prisoner in the material world. So he's actually suffering, but he's not making any, there is no plan for him to come out of this suffering. So that is why this bodily consciousness is actually a very great obstacle. And even when we come to devotional service, after coming to Krishna consciousness, it's not that the bodily consciousness goes away, you know. So even when a devotee comes to bhakti, he's actually always conscious of what will satisfy me, which set of people will satisfy me, and what positions will satisfy me. So the consciousness revolves around these factors. And as we discussed, that to the extent person is bodily conscious, to that degree his ability to perceive the spiritual nature of the spiritual items becomes limited. जय श्री शनिताय गौरांग भगवान की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की, निताय गौर प्रेमानंद. So despite hearing so much philosophy, still this bodily consciousness doesn't go away so easily. And actually, every day morning we chant the 10 offenses against the holy names. So all the 10 offenses, if we see carefully, they're actually a result of bodily consciousness. Like the first offense, blaspheming the devotees. So when one sees the devotees with bodily consciousness, that means he's unable to identify their Vaishnava nature. He's only identifying them with the body. So that's why there are offenses. So likewise, we see seeing the spiritual master as ordinary, because he's seeing with bodily consciousness. And then the holy name as ordinary, because he is unable to perceive the spiritual potency of the holy name. And the 10th offense exactly speaks about bodily consciousness. Even after hearing so many instructions from the Vedas, he still maintains his attachments. So as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, these mental attachments is like, or the bodily consciousness is like the hook, which actually doesn't allow a devotee to move forward in devotional service. So he gives the example of the boatman, where the party of the bridegroom, the whole night the boatman is riding, but the boat is not moving because the anchor is on. So in the same way, till the time a devotee consciously endeavors to rise above this bodily consciousness, even we may practice for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the whole life may go, but actually there is not much transformation that is taking place, because the bodily consciousness is so strongly covering the chitta. So so that is why when we also we hear this shloka which tells about the results of bodily consciousness, which is actually very, very frightening. Arche Vishnu Shiladir Gurushu Naramati Vaishnava Jati Buddhir. So this is considered as hellish consciousness. So even a devotee practicing devotional service, if he is not conscious to rise above this bodily consciousness, even he will not be able to serve the deity properly. So that is why we chant the Bhuta Shuddhi prayers before entering the deity room. Naham Vipro, Nachanarapitir, Nahi Vaishona Shudro. To actually understand that, at least consciously we chant this, we try to chant and remind ourselves that actually I am not this body, I am eternal servant of Krishna. So otherwise the service becomes very mechanical, and we might end up offending. So even more severe than that is Gurushu Naramati. So seeing the spiritual master as an ordinary person. So we see in the pastime of Indra. So Indra, when in the heavenly planets, he was completely absorbed in enjoying the dances of the heavenly damsels. And there was beating of kettle drums, and so many people performing for the pleasure of Indra. So because he was so much absorbed in that, he was actually stooped into bodily consciousness. And because of that, when his spiritual master Brihaspati arrived, he actually did not take any extra effort to offer him respect, because he knows the spiritual master is worth respecting. He actually deserves respect, and in normal times he would definitely respect. But because the bodily consciousness was so overwhelming, he actually neglected to offer the respect. And we see the consequences were very, very demanding. He actually was forced to, he's forced to, he was deprived of the heavenly kingdom, and then the demons take over, and the entire pastime goes. So Gurushu Naramatir. And then comes Vaishnava Jati Buddhir. So one sees the Vaishnava not as identifying with his spiritual quality, but he sees according to his bodily designations. So we will try to look at the section from the 4th canto. This is 4th canto, 2nd chapter, which actually speaks about Daksha cursing Lord Shiva. So we'll try to study some verses because this is a very relevant section to our discussion. So we see Daksha was given the responsibility of a progenitor. Now, this pastime, before this pastime also, the pastime of Daksha comes in the 9th canto, wherein Daksha, the episode of Daksha creating the Haryashvas and Salayashvas, right? So the 2,000 and 10,000 set of sons. So when Narada Muni comes to preach, he actually unable to identify the exalted position of Narada Muni, he ends up cursing Narada Muni. Now what curse he gives to Narada Muni? That he won't be able to stay in any particular place for more than 3 days. So what we understand from this curse? See, when somebody is cursing somebody, the intention is that, to cause him some suffering. Now for Daksha, the greatest happiness is staying at one place and getting the pleasures offered by the family and friends. So because that is the value system and that is the definition of pleasure, so that is why for him this curse was the greatest suffering. So, however, Narada Muni took it as a greatest blessing, because he used that opportunity to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. So we see in bodily consciousness, the definition of what is success and what is failure completely changes. So for Daksha, failure means one is unable to have a very fulfilling material career, So that is the failure for Daksha. And this consciousness doesn't, get over. It actually continues over to the 11th canto, 4th canto, wherein Daksha actually ends up. So this is in the beginning of the creation, where Daksha was creating the progeny, and after this episode comes wherein Daksha ends up offending great personality Lord Shiva. So in this pastime, Daksha performs a great sacrifice where he invites all the great personalities, all the great sages and the demigods. So all the demigods had assembled in this arena, and the demigods were waiting for Daksha to arrive. And as soon as Daksha arrived the sacrificial arena, all the demigods stood up. And it is described here that actually Daksha was fully effulgent, as bright as the effulgence of the sun. And the entire assembly was illuminated. So, and the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. So even everyone stood up except Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So So all the demigods stood up, just because Lord Shiva did not stood up, Daksha felt very, very offended. So it says, before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha, becoming greatly angry and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. We look at what Daksha speaks to understand what can bodily consciousness can impel one to do with devotees. All sages, Brahmanas and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Actually, Daksha is speaking out of envy, and he is saying that he is not speaking out of envy. So actually, in association of devotees also, when we are associating with devotees, so Srila Rupa Goswami tells about the 64 qualities of a Vaishnava, and the crown quality of all the 64 qualities is Krishna Eka Sharanam. So when we are associating with devotees, if we actually forget to identify this Krishna Eka Sharanam quality of the Vaishnavas, then actually we will also be in the same position as what Daksha is doing. Because many times when devotees come, we get to interface the various sides of the devotee. But then if our focus is not on the primary aspect, then we actually tend to take them for granted and actually end up committing offenses. So it is said that even if we get to see the other side, but since they have come to the right place of Krishna Eka Sharanam, and Krishna is Om Apavitro Pavitro Va Sarva Vasta Gatopiva Yasmaret Pundarikaksham Sa Bhaya Bhyantara Suchihi. So they will eventually get purified, and they will get purified and go back to Godhead, and we, because of offending, will stay in this material world. So that is why it is very important to keep reminding ourselves that who are the people or who are the devotees whom we are staying with. They are not ordinary people. Anyone who has come to the Krishna conscious movement, who's taken a commitment to sacrifice his life in a dedicated manner and giving his life for the service of Srila Prabhupada, is not an ordinary person. If you look at the percentage, 8 billion population, what is the percentage of devotees and what are the percentage of the brahmacharis? Very, very rare. And it's Manushyanam Sahasresu. But then, because we are day and night looking devotees, being with devotees, talking with devotees, taking prasad with devotees, it is very likely that to take the devotees for granted and see them with bodily designation. So this is what is happening with Daksha also. So it is said that suppose somebody is walking on the street and he happens to step on stool, so it is very stinking. Now that person, he comes home, and then he straight away goes to the bathroom or the washroom to wash his feet. Now while he is washing his feet, somebody goes into this, see, what a nasty person is this, he doesn't know the basic standards of cleanliness. You just wait for some time, he's going to get cleansed and he's going to be rendered pure. We don't have to criticize somebody who is already in the process of getting purified. So in the same way, when we are in the association of devotees, it is very easy to actually find faults and point out the other side of the devotees. But then because they have this primary quality of Krishna Eka Sharanam, it is just a matter of time that they will get purified and they will shine. And they're already shining, and their shine is going to increase. But then, because we forget to identify this quality of Krishna Eka Sharanam, we actually end up committing offenses. So this is the danger of bodily consciousness. So please understand that I'm speaking all this for myself. All of you are exalted devotees. So please don't take it otherwise. So Shiva, so these curses are starting now. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of governors of universe and has polluted the earth, polluted the path of gentle manners. Because he is shameless, he doesn't know how to act. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate, by marrying my daughter in presence of fire and Brahmanas. He has married my daughter who is equal to Gayatri and has pretended to be just like an honest man. So he's saying that he has become his subordinate. Why? Because of bodily consciousness. Who is Lord Shiva? Lord Shiva is Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambho. He is as good as Lord Vishnu. Just that, he has taken the role of impregnating the material nature. So, not understanding the exalted position of Lord Shiva because of bodily consciousness, Daksha is actually taking for granted and is thinking in terms of his bodily relationship. He is seeing him as a son-in-law. He actually is supposed to respect him. He has eyes like a monkey, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think to fit to welcome me with sweet words. So when we are in association of devotees, our expectation of from devotees also increases many fold. Because we think I'm a very great person, I'm a very skillful person, I'm very competent. How can devotees not respect me? So Daksha is also speaking based on his bodily consciousness. He is expecting Lord Shiva to respect him. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he is impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Shudra. So he is calling Lord Shiva as impure. And why he is impure? He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying, he smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Lord Shiva, or auspicious. Actually, he is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. So, little does Daksha know that Lord Shiva is actually putting all these ashes and is staying in crematoriums out of compassion, because like attracts like. So that the ghosh and the hope goblins who are actually deprived of a body, they may be attracted to Lord Shiva, and in the association of a pure devotee, they may get the pious credits to be able to actually get a body and get delivered and come out of this very severe forms of suffering. So this is actually the heart of Lord Shiva. But Daksha, because of his bodily consciousness, is only able to see the external appearance of Lord Shiva. In the same way, when we are in association of devotees, we also tend to limit our perception to only the externals. And then we also might end up committing offenses, not identifying what is their true intention. So that is why it is said that Krishna consciousness is like razor's edge. So that means in association of devotees, when one comes to bhakti, if one has the right consciousness, is able to see the devotees as devotees, then his anarthas will be completely purified, and then in this very life he can go back home, back to Godhead. But when there is any neglect, then there will be blood. That means, if like Daksha is doing here, if we tend to see devotees for granted, then we are actually creating very big obstacles for ourselves. There are already enough obstacles, and on top of that, we don't want to add more obstacles. So that is why repeatedly reminding ourselves of the personalities with whom we are staying with, whom we are associating with, is actually of great importance. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him. Although he is devoid of all cleanliness, his heart is filled with nasty things. So it is said that whatever we have within our heart, we actually see the world in that manner. Actually, Daksha is having envy, and his heart is filled with the bodily designation, and he is seeing Lord Shiva is actually having all these qualities. So we can see to what degree Daksha is continuing to commit offenses after offenses. So Daksha, then Sage Maitreya continued, thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words. Again Daksha is cursing. So again the same consciousness. So for Daksha, what is definition of success? So whatever bodily pleasure, or the enjoyments of this material world, that is definition of success. Little does he know the exalted nature of Lord Shiva and what is his meditation. So let us look at his curse. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all demigods, should not have a share. As if Lord Shiva is actually desperate to get a share. Actually, Lord Shiva, on the instruction of the Supreme Lord, is actually doing this duty of fulfilling the prayers of the materialists. Lord Shiva is not interested to do that. He actually is interested to give devotional service. That's how we see if somebody is a sincere devotee, like in the case of Chandidas. Chandidas? No, not Chandidas. There's another devotee whom Lord Shiva guides him to Lord Vishnu. I don't know exactly what is the name. And also we see in the section of Prachetas, Lord Shiva sings Rudra Geetam. So actually, the Prachetas did not come to Lord Shiva for guidance. The Prachetas were going on their way to Ashriti. But Lord Shiva saw now this is an opportunity to speak Krishna Katha. So he became very enthusiastic. He actually appears himself from the lake and starts speaking the Rudra Geetam. So actually we can see Lord Shiva is hardly interested about getting any share. But for Daksha, not getting a share is the greatest deprivement. So this is the definition of success of Daksha. So actually, depending on what consciousness we have, our definitions of success and failure also changes. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, in spite of the request of all members of sacrificial assembly, Daksha in great anger cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. So in the next chapter, actually we see, so we know that how the curses happen and the counter curses take place, and Lord Shiva becoming morose, that such a interaction taking place, he actually leaves without speaking a single word. And after many years, Daksha performs another sacrifice, and in that sacrifice he also invites all the demigods, all the great personalities, and this time he doesn't even care to invite Lord Shiva. However, Mother Sati, being the daughter of Daksha, she becomes very desperate to go to that sacrifice, and she seeks the consent of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva tries to tries to make her understand that actually if she goes there, it won't be much, it won't be good for her. So there Lord Shiva tells that why Daksha is behaving like this. Just 1 second. Yeah. So this is chapter 4.3.17. So Lord Shiva is telling, although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth and heritage are for highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. So actually we here in the Kunti Maharani section, Janma Aishwarya Shruti Shribhir Yedhamanam Atappuman Naiva Arhatum Dhatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. So one is covered by this material opulences, one becomes so much overpowered that one fails to identify or respect the great personalities. So these 6 opulences actually make Krishna very, very attractive, and we also become attracted to Lord Krishna. But the same opulences, when they're present in Jivatma, because Jivatma doesn't has the ability to handle them, he actually becomes completely covered over and thinks that he actually deserves respect. and commits offenses towards respectable personalities, like Daksha is doing here. So that is why in the purport Srila Prabhupada writes that Sistvam Akinchana Gocharam. So for a devotee, sometimes it is detrimental for a person advancing in Krishna consciousness to possess such material assets. Kunti Devi, while offering praise to Krishna, addressed him as Akinchana Gochara, one who is easily approached by those who are bereft of material acquisitions. Material exhaustion is an advantage for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Although, if one is conscious of his eternal relationship with Supreme Lord, one can utilize one's material assets such as great learning and beauty and exalted ancestry for the service of the Lord. Then such assets become glorious. So as Ananta Bhagavan was saying, that when one indulges in matter, then that leads to suffering. But the same matter, when that is dovetailed in Krishna service, that becomes the cause of one's liberation. So possessing the material opulences is not necessarily a curse, but if one forgets to engage them in Krishna service and forgets that who has actually given him these opulences, then the problem comes. So that is why whatever little abilities or skills the Lord has blessed us with, it is very vital for all of us that every iota of our ability, we engage it in the Lord's service. Because just as anything which is left over, it becomes rusted and it becomes spoiled, even the abilities and the skills which the Lord has benedicted, if we don't engage in Lord's service, they actually bind us only. So to be saved ourselves from being binded, it is our responsibility to see to it that we fully engage our abilities, our whatever God given gifts in the Lord's service. Then we'll be saved. So, and then this episode goes on. So how do we actually rise above this bodily consciousness? So it's very difficult. So I was hearing once from Radheshyam Prabhu. So when one chants the holy names attentively, especially when one chants for prolonged period of time. So some of you have experience on the day also of Nirjal Ekadashi, So when we chant for long hours, we actually get little experience of coming out of the bodily consciousness, because we understand we are associating with the Supreme Lord, and we understand actually we don't need all the whatever the requirements of the body, provided we are able to take the right association of the forms of the Supreme Lord as the holy name, and also by associating with very great personalities who are actually above bodily consciousness. Like in Rath Yatra, when we go to hear from Param Pujya Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj, we can see that no one will say that there is any tinge of bodily consciousness. So by and in fact, when Maharaj was asked, he says that it is actually he's feeling indebted, to Srila Prabhupada, that even despite getting so many obstacles, he doesn't feel any discouragement. He continues to go on. So we should very seriously make a point to regularly take association of great souls who are above bodily consciousness, and take opportunities of days like Ekadashi and in our regular chanting also, to try to as best as possible attentively chant, so that we can safeguard ourselves from this danger of offending devotees and taking them for granted, like Daksha is doing. So that's what is said in the purport. The last line of the purport says, the conclusion is that one should never consider a Krishna conscious person in terms of bodily designation, but should see him as an eternal servitor of the Lord. So please bless me so that I can come out of my bodily consciousness. I'm speaking all this for for myself to remind myself. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Today, Chotan Prabhu will share some realization about Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So from this year book distribution, I realized, like when I first started book distribution means in this year, first went for book distribution in train when we are going to GEV. In that time, actually first time I forgot to pray to Srila Prabhupada about distribution of books. So there is nothing was happening actually. So from that I realized that after that when evening we are doing book distribution again, in that time I prayed to Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada please help me so that your books distributed, many people get this chance to purchase these books. So after that the book distribution happens very nicely, and all the devotees also distributed many books. So I felt from this event, this incident, that book distribution happens when I pray to Srila Prabhupada. That should be means mode of praying to Srila Prabhupada. And also yesterday we went for book distribution, and there also I saw that how prayer help us to distribute books. Even by praying to Srila Prabhupada also there is no efforts for doing book distribution. Means I no need to convince anyone that take this book or preaching something. The people comes automatically and they took the books, purchase the books. Like yesterday also 2-3 persons came, and I didn't talk anything with them, but they came and they took books. So it's so nice actually. And also one person, he was searching for Bhagavad Gita, so he purchased one Bhagavad Gita, and beside that person there was another person. So he was telling me that I will take Bhagavad Gita only, I will pay you 100 rupees. But I told him that no, 100 rupees is not possible. 250 it's printing cost. So you can give 250 rupees as a donation in Newtown Temple. So after that, the person who purchased the Bhagavad Gita, another person, he told that I will sponsor you Bhagavad Gita. So, but that person, he take small books on the way to Krishna. Means he saw, I took small books, not big books. So he took small books. So, and also he gave me 400 rupees, means 250, and this one is 40 rupees on the way to Krishna. So I told him that actually I have no change. So can you give me some 250 plus 49 to 90? So he told me that you keep it with you, and other whatever money extra is there, you can give it to others, means on the way to Krishna for selling. So this is so nice that some people are very much favorable for. So we always approach to each and every person. We don't know that how Krishna who is sending to us. So that's the thank you very much, and also thank you very much to Haryang Prabhu. Also Haryang Prabhu told us yesterday that how we should approach to youths normally, equal age youths or students, that we should not just show them Bhagavad Gita. We can comfortably talk with them first. First tell them Hare Krishna, then ask their names, where they are studying, like this. So I applied that technique, and that technique is helped very much. So and after that we can after a few discussion we can started talking about Bhagavad Gita, means giving Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.